Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my Green Book movie review. Again, this is one that I'm a little behind on. I'm trying to play catch up here, as video games have consumed my life. This movie is directed by Peter Farrelly. Yes, the same Farrelly as in the Farrelly brothers, as in Dumb and Dumber. And it stars Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. And I'm going to go right ahead and say that I think Mahershala Ali is going to get, well, he already is nominated for Best Actor because the nominations came out, or Best Supporting Actor, which I think really is kind of a snub. In my opinion, he is the lead actor of this movie. Viggo, I think, is the supporting actor. And I think, based on the categories, or based on the competition, I think Mahershala Ali wins this Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Viggo Mortensen was great in it. A lot of people were kind of wondering, oh, this is really something different for Farrelly brothers or for Peter Farrelly. But when you think about it, Dumb and Dumber is probably what they're best known for. And both that movie and this movie, in essence, are road trip movies with two guys traversing the nation. This movie is about an African American pianist, very well educated, triple PhD guy, I think in psychology, music, and linguistics, I believe. He studied abroad in these fancy schools, and he's in kind of like the upper artist class in New York City. And in the early 60s, he decides he needs kind of like someone to double as both a bodyguard type and as a driver to take him on tour along with his band through the American South in the early 1960s while Kennedy was president, so before the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And there's a thing about this movie that I think a lot of people miss. They say, oh, it's predictable and this and that, but I think it's much deeper than that. And depending on what your own personal experience is, it'll vary the way you interpret this movie. For me, I was really able to relate to Mahershala Ali's character, not in every aspect, but in the sense that he, being a black man, especially in those days, triple PhD guy, educated, his money, he had trouble relating to other black people. And for myself, coming from someone who came from a very poor family, a very poor area, sanctuary neighborhood, who was able to transcend out of that through education and hard work. Even while I was there, I had trouble relating with people. This is often the problem, as it's a relevant problem in today's society, as most people are just straight tribalists because it gives them a sense of self-identity, whereas other people who think freely tend to be of a little bit higher intellect, I'm sorry to say, and I think they tend to be individuals. However, the result of such a thing is that they end up having trouble relating to other people and often suffer from loneliness because they don't really ascribe necessarily to a tribe. And sometimes they get ostracized for that. And I think this is a problem still today in many different, how could I say it? In many different groups within the United States and maybe the world, whereas like, oh, how dare you leave the tribe, how dare you ascend without the rest of us. And I think Mahershala Ali's character, which is based on a true story, these guys ended up being friends until they both passed away, I think in 2013. But he wanted this experience to try and maybe get more in touch with that, or see how other black people lived in other parts of the country. He could have stayed up in New York, and it even comes up in the movie. He could have stayed up there with all those upper class New York elites kissing his ass, but he wanted that. He wanted to go down south in the early 60s. And Green Book, what it actually means is it's a book of all the motels that black people could stay at in the South, because this is still during segregation, right? This is 1960, so it wasn't that long ago, and I can stand why. Again, there's a lot of trepidation with a lot of the African American community to be able to trust the government. Although, in my opinion, it's time we move forward. Yes, that was half a century ago, but again, half a century is not forever ago. There's people alive that remember that, and you'd be foolish to think that they wouldn't press that onto their kids. And again, I tend to think that we should ascend transcend our own parents, right? Yeah, they're going to give you their experience, but their experience does not have to be your experience. Not necessarily, and you shouldn't let their experience really shape the world that you think you live in. I think we as individuals should shape our own future and our own society rather than get stuck in the past. Just my opinion, not to get too political, but I found this movie absolutely endearing. That would be the word that I use to describe this film, and relatable. I think it's up for Best Picture. Mahershala Ali, I think, is a lock for Best Supporting Actor. And I really recommend you go see this in theaters as soon as possible. It's a great movie. And I was going to give it an 80 on a Starstrider scale, but just as I sit here and think about it, this movie evoked emotion from me, and I was really able to relate to Mahershala Ali's character in that sense where sometimes you feel like you're so different from other people that society likes to group people into these categories, and I don't like that. I like to treat everybody as an individual, yet the fact remains that most people do it to themselves. They place themselves in these groups, and when you are someone who doesn't play that way, doesn't think that way, it's a recipe for loneliness. But it's this movie in a way made me feel more connected. That yes, there are others like me that way. They have trouble fitting in these groups that the mainstream media and others have kind of told us, like, oh, you're part of that group, and maybe we don't want to be, maybe we do, we don't know. I really like this movie a lot. So on the Starstrider scale, I'd give this movie an 89. So go see this movie, please. It's a great movie. I know there was controversy because Viggo Mortensen said some word, and people just need to stop being so damn sensitive. He apologized, and it's the controversy didn't break the film or whatnot. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Have you seen it? You don't want to see it? You don't care? You hate my channel? Anyways, leave your comments below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Okay, bye. Commander out. Boom, 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 boom.